We're in the show. This is not therapy hour.
If you're going to do that, you got to get a whole kick line to show up. We don't have the resources for that.
Oh, we do, sir. We can manufacture.
For a whole kick line?
I don't know. Can my dog be the kick line?
No. Hello, and welcome to the This Is Not Therapy Hour. I am Brandon Tessers.
I am Caitlin Miller.
We are both licensed therapists, but this is not therapy for very, very many reasons. Mostly because of the lack of a kick line, if we have.
Yeah, that obviously.
This is just an open conversation. Caitlin and I are here talking with one another, cracking ourselves up, I suppose. And we're talking with you all, whether you're watching this live or after the fact as a video on demand. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you are, what you're interested in, how we're coming across to you, how we're impacting you. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us a lot more information on which to base those guesses about who you are and what you're interested in and how we're coming across. If you are, please don't hesitate to put anything in the chat. Caitlin and I will be talking about whatever we're talking about, but the conversation will go where it goes. If you have a question or a thought or a joke or a comment, just throw it out there. Don't worry about whether it's like on topic or whether you're interrupting us or anything like that. We do our best to try and read the comments out as they come in because we're streaming on 3 different platforms simultaneously, and each of you will only see comments that come from the platform you're on. If you're on Facebook, you see comments that are entered through Facebook and so on. So we try and read them out so that everybody's on the same page. We work with a private therapy practice called Effective Artistry. Our office is located in North Illinois. We do individual, couples, family, and group therapy with people in the states of Illinois and Wisconsin. We work with a couple coaches that can work with people all over the world via the internet, executive functioning coaches, parenting coach, so on.
Nervous system regulation coach. We also have therapists who speak Albanian and Spanish. So we offer services in different languages as well.
Sure. I think that's it. So it's good to see you, Caitlin. How you doing?
I am riding the waves of change. I feel like this year I am changing in so many ways, and it's mostly good, but it's a high cost, and sometimes you don't recognize yourself. How are you doing, Brandon Tessers?
I'm good. A little on the tired side, but good. Yeah, good. The weather's turning into the kind of weather that I like it to be, so that's nice. I always find that interesting. Well, okay, never mind. I'll say, is there anything in particular on your mind that you were wanting to talk about on the stream today?
What do you find particularly interesting, Brandon?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to withhold it. I run this in some ways, this stream I run structurally similarly to how I run a session where, kind of have like a coming on board update kind of a thing.
Yeah.
We can talk about it in some detail, but then ask about like what people want to work on or what they want to discuss. And so that's all. I was just trying to make space for that before commenting on something else that.
I know, but your magnetic pole got me, and now I'm wondering what you wanted to talk about, sir.
No, there wasn't any.
That is what's on my mind.
I always find it interesting how people talk about or conceptualize change. The fact that people talk about change as though sometimes it's happening and sometimes it isn't, which obviously in a literal sense, it always is. Everything is change every moment. And I know that in practical terms, obviously people aren't discussing like the literal quality of, is this different than it was? But then it begs the question of what then does signify as change to people, right? Brandon is pretty magnetic. Sure, yeah.
I cannot see the comments, so thank you for reading them out.
Yeah, same with like.
I agree, Bastion Cider. I just found the comment. I won't be able to see them pop up, but yeah, I was wondering if that was cider. So.
But same with like different. People talk about things being different or people being different, which obviously, if we're being literal, everyone is different. So then it's people are talking about different qualities. They're looking at some particular thing that they're describing as different, and it's not the quality of being dissimilar from other stuff. So when you say you've been writing change, the winds of change, did you say? Tides of change?
I like a good
writing
title
something
metaphor.
about change. There's a hi emoji there. Hi.
Yay, hello.
Or like something, people will frequently say, I'm afraid of change, or I don't do well with change. And so then it's always interesting to try and divine, like, what is it that they're talking about? It's not change. It's either some specific type of change or category of change or level. And we want to look into that.
I can attempt to answer. I would say that my life, okay, I am 33. My life in my 20s was more stressful and dangerous than my life is now. And sort of like the effective artistry slogan of like design a life around you or whatever. What do we say? Do you remember it, Brandon?
This is something I said like a long time ago that I think I put on the website.
And it's still on the website.
Stop designing your life around the world. Design your world around your life, or something like that.
Something like that. Design your life around you. Yeah. So I have done that, and so it's not a binary like done task sort of thing, but I am on the path to that. And so I have a lot less to worry about and stress out about and be concerned about, and I have a lot less reason to look for danger, particularly social. I'm not talking about
but you said change. You said it was costly. What's costly about everything getting better?
How do I describe this? I'm not saying costly in a negative way.
I'm not interpreting it in a negative way.
Okay.
But being less stressed, like stress is a costly experience, right? So being less stressed would theoretically be less costly.
My life overall is costing me a lot less energetically, but it's strange, I guess, to be. I remember periods of my life where I was probably like an 8 out of 10 stressed almost every day, including on days where I didn't have to work. And now it's almost like I can feel I can feel the gap in my cognition now between all of the cognitive energy I was using to manage stress and themes of stress, and not having that anymore. It's freed up, and so now I'm trying to figure out how to utilize this like gap in cognitive energy, which is like freeing and liberating and great and wonderful, but it's very different when you do the same thing over and over and over again, and then you shift to something else. It feels strange, even if it is also like wonderful on a very deep level.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's often what people are talking about when they're talking about change being costly. If it's good change, they just mean like it's new, it's different, it takes some getting used to. I don't know what to do with these new opportunities or these freed up resources or whatever, and that makes sense.
I do know what to do with them. Well, at least I'm making choices about what to do with them that I'm relatively pleased with.
Well, that's good. I don't know if this has been somewhat of a theme lately. In my mind, it seems like it maybe has been somewhat of a theme. That our culture is very, very cognitively oriented for a lot of reasons. And obviously individual people vary from one to the other, but broadly, like we're all very cognitively oriented people. To the extent that we we have a tendency culturally and individually to treat. I was thinking of it this way earlier, that like, if you think of the metaphor of like a factory that's, making stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if I am like a factory, right? We take data in, we nutrients in, whatever, and we do behavior as output and whatever. The factory floor, like the machines, the things that are going more or less automatically, like that's our body and non-conscious processes. And then conscious thought is like the people who design and build and fix and change the factory, right? So we can make decisions about like, you know what, we're going to change this machine so that it does this thing instead of that other thing. And we do that, when the machine isn't running and whatever. But I get this sense that people generally have gotten it reversed now, and they think that their conscious experience is like the automatic stuff, and then the body is what you use to adjust and modify it. In other words, people are, again, for a lot of reasons that make a lot of sense, people are very focused on their cognitive experience, treating like emotion and thought as though those things are real, and that, the things that you do, the physical actions that you take and the things in your environment matter primarily in how they affect what you think and feel. So something like this, where like your life is getting better, but it's different than what you are used to, different than what you're expecting. It calls your attention to things because you can't run on automatic the way that you used to, because things have changed.
That is a good way to put it. My attention seems to be called in different ways more often because the automatic processes I was using to function as a human being, the environment doesn't match what those processes were built for.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that a way to say it?
I think so. And that experience.
Keep going, sir.
That makes sense to me. And that experience people often interpret as problematic. Meaning that like.
Right now for me, it mostly feels like an unburdening, but it is, I keep coming back to the word strange.
Strange, yeah. Strange meaning unusual.
Yeah. But keep going. Tell me about the
think
problematic
of it like
part.
If you're driving on a route that you've driven a bunch before, right? Kind of go on that automatic. We all people who drive the same route over and over have this experience of like you can almost kind of blink and it's like you've arrived.
You also drive really fast, Brendan.
Me?
Just remember that. Yes.
Have we ever ridden in a car together? I'm wondering.
No, I've seen you swerve out of the parking lot in Northbrook so fast, and you might want to slow down sometimes.
That's interesting. That is not congruent with the feedback we have gotten from other sources.
That's so funny. Well, I also drive very slowly, so this could be an example of the relativity of opinions.
Maybe.
But keep going, sorry.
So if you're driving a route that you've driven hundreds or thousands of times before, you don't need to pay much conscious attention, if any at all, to like the physical environment. Obviously, there is cognition at work, but it's non-conscious processes because if you're taking in data and then adapting and responding based on that data, there's some level of cognition at play, right? If you're not consciously aware of it, we'd still call that some version of non-conscious cognition. So anyway, if you're doing that, you're freed up to like think about whatever. You could be having conversations, or you could be listening to an audiobook or a song or singing or whatever. And then if something happens while you're driving and all of a sudden you need to pay attention to the environment again. Brandon, speed demon. I knew somewhere inside Brandon had a need for speed.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
If someone like swerves in front of you, right?
And like Brandon, because he's not paying attention to his fast route. Sorry, keep going.
Very safe driver. In fact, I would bet that you've been in more accidents than I have, but
one, sir. One. Are you at zero? Anyway. I wouldn't put you past zero.
No, I'm not at zero, but I haven't been in any accidents since I was like young, and
since I was young too.
Were not my fault.
Mine was definitely my fault.
Anyway, if something like that, so you're driving along, just chilling, your resources are freed up to think about other things, do other things, and presumably you're selecting among what all the things you could be thinking about. You're selecting for things that are either interesting or useful or valuable for you to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I love that Brandon fighting back that is not congruent with other feedback I have received.
Yeah, welcome to Brandon land, Brando land, Rando
Specifically,
land.
Susan, my wife, mocks me for driving slowly.
Really?
Frequently.
That is so fun. So Susan's the speed demon, and you're the middle. You're.
I'll be honest. I'm not entirely confident that you're even thinking of a car that I was actually driving. All right, I'm finished this metaphor.
I know. It's land the plane.
So you're driving along. You don't need to pay attention to the environment because you've learned it. That frees up your resources. And then there are processes that select among all the things you could pay attention to. What do you pay attention to? So presumably it's something either enjoyable or useful or important, right? And then if somebody swerves in front of you and it calls your attention back to the present moment because now things are different than you expect and you need conscious awareness of it again to solve this new problem. The thing which has called your attention is a thing which is a problem. That's why your attention is called back to it.
And the more it threatens your life, the more your attention gets called to it, right?
True. And B, it's unpleasant to have your attention called away from whatever you were paying attention. Because again, whatever you were paying attention to.
Unpleasant, interesting. That's not morally neutral.
Well, keep unpleasant going. Isn't a moral term. It's a experiential. In other words, if you give someone the choice of do whatever you want, then presumably whatever they end up selecting to do is something that is valuable or enjoyable, or they have some reason to be wanting to do that thing. If you then dissuade them from doing that thing and make them do something else that isn't something they selected, so usually when that happens, or at least often when that happens, the other thing that our attention is being called to is a problem. So it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And B, it pulls us away from, I'm in the middle of writing a song in my mind or whatever, and now I got to swerve to avoid hitting this person.
That's actually the worst.
Yeah, it's disruptive and unpleasant. We don't like that to happen. We have those experiences enough across the thing that I think this is a lot of what people are talking about when they say, I don't like change. Because most of the time when people are saying, I don't like change or I don't do well with change, more often than not, the specific change they're talking about is not a problematic one. Because if it is, they can name that as the reason they don't like it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. When people typically use that language, the change is not a problematic one. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. If you break your arm and you're like, I'm really struggling to figure out how to navigate my day with only one arm available to me. Nobody's like, why? And then you have to be like, because I don't like change. No, So generally it's I just moved and I like my new place, but it's hard to get used to, I don't like change, right?
Yep.
We all knew Susan was the true troublemaker. And it's true. I often think, dang, I lost my train of thought because I had to swerve to avoid hitting that pedestrian. I hope that's not often, but I mean, good that we have these processes in place, right? That when that's the case, we lose our train of thought. Although I do, sort of laughing emoji there. I do think that is part of what plays into people's frustration and anger, road rage, whatever you call it. Is how much of it is that people are exploring something else cognitively and then get disrupted by someone else's actions that are unexpected, which aligns a lot with when you talk about whether it's neurodivergent people, autistic people, high IQ people, whatever, this trait of that person doesn't respond well when things go differently than was planned. Here was the schedule, and then at the last minute it's hey, actually we're going to go to this restaurant today instead of eating at home or whatever, and they have a big negative response to that.
Don't call me out, sir.
Is that you?
Don't subtweet me.
I'm not surprised. The more cognitively oriented somebody is, the more likely it is that they would rather be spending their attention on things which are in their cognition, thinking about stuff. And then when the environment calls their attention, they're almost can tend to be like a knee-jerk reaction of like, well, what do I have to deal with now? Right? Like, I don't want to have to, let me just get back to this. And so especially when it's somebody else doing that somebody else has done something, broken a rule, changed an expectation, then there can be that like, what are you, like, why are you doing this? And those literally, even in like the behaviors and the statements and whatever that we see, there's not there's at least some overlap between what we see in people getting angry on the road at other drivers who've disrupted their processes and people who.
Oh, wow. This is helping me have more compassion for someone who had horrible road rage in my personal life years ago.
The clinically
You're just a fountain of compassion, sir.
The term in clinical diagnosis is rigid inflexibility. That's what we're talking about.
I did have a lady stop in front of me at a stoplight and then get out of her car to walk to the back seat door to get her wallet out, which was really exciting, when the light immediately turned green, and right after, she opened the door. I did not have a lot of compassion for her. This was yesterday. Bastian, do you feel more compassion now that you're in Brando Rando land?
You know, you keep saying Bastion.
How do you say it?
The screen name is Bast and Cider. Bast is in like the Egyptian goddess.
Okay, that's amazing. I think I keep imagining like a person who is a English king and is like, Bastion Cider. Like, that's what I imagine it as.
You see Bastion as a title for a person?
I don't know, yes.
They're my cats. Bast and Cider says they're my cats.
Aww. Oh,
I just thought you would like to know that because Bast is an Egyptian goddess, and you're.
I know. I'm still into Egypt. You're tracking me correctly, Brandon. Good job.
And also, Bastion is not a title for a person.
It sounds like a great title. I will name my firstborn Bastion.
Well, it can be short for the name Sebastian. There are people whose name is Bastion, but it's not a title like Duke or whatever. You know.
It can be if you write a fantasy novel and you make it a title.
Could be. It's a fantastic video game. Yeah, Bastion means like bulwark, or like a fortress.
Really?
I wonder what the official definition would be.
Can you talk about Bast in Egypt? Tell us what you know about this.
Yes, and me?
Yes, you, Brandon.
I don't know a lot about Bast. I believe that's the one that's associated with cats, like the cat-headed one. Is it the god of death?
Let me see.
One of the gods of death? Because I think Osiris was also a god of death, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes! Bastet. Wow. Ubasti or Bubastis. Religion. All-seeing eye. Yeah. Wow.
Also the god in Black Panther mythology. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Forgot about that. Black Panther,
I love
the
that.
Marvel character.
Oh, that's great. The amount of times in a therapy session I've said to neurodivergent clients, would you consider writing a fanfic about that?
Interesting. Anyway, that I think is part of what people are talking about when they say I don't like change. Is like my life was on autopilot, so I was free to pay a lot of attention to what's in my cognition, and now I'm having to pay more attention to what's going on in my environment, and I would rather get back to paying attention to my cognition. But that's not more costly, because attention is not a resource that we can save or distribute. Sorry, not distribute. It's not a resource that we can save and spend at different rates, right?
Yes.
At all times, you're paying attention to the maximum number of things that you can pay attention to. It's
okay, so if it's not more costly, can you give me different language, Brandon Tussers?
So you could say it's unpleasant if it's, if you don't like it, if you just don't enjoy the experience.
What if I don't enjoy the taking my attention away experience, but then the experience of the thing I'm paying attention to is more enjoyable than my cognition. And so it's a net win in like the pleasure scale, but the movement from cognition focused inwardly to focusing on the environment, that is unpleasurable. What would you call that, sir?
Well, I don't think that's not an experience that one can. So pleasant or unpleasant is an experiential thing, right? I am enjoying this thing, or this thing is painful or uncomfortable or whatever. And attention switching from one thing to another is not like an experience, it's a way of conceptualizing it, right? What you mean is that you would prefer to not, you would be preferring to pay attention to the other thing. You would like it better to pay attention to the other thing in theory, right? Not the actual experience of it. Okay, here's something that's baked in, is a higher degree of uncertainty, right? If you're paying more attention to your physical environment, I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but I can't think of it at the moment. So if you're paying more attention to the physical environment, you have a higher degree of uncertainty. That would be why theoretically you're paying attention to the physical environment. Is because you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know what to do. You need that data in order to kind of incorporate it into your thinking about what to do. And that degree of uncertainty can be something that we don't like, thinking of ourselves as though we lack expertise, right? I'm really great at this, but now I have to do this other thing and I don't know how to do this thing. But that's not so much necessarily an unpleasant experience as it is like the way we evaluate ourselves.
Say more. How is it about the way we evaluate ourselves?
So the more that people rely on cognition, the more that they're into trying to like anticipate and predict the future, like how things will go. That's what cognition is for, is to run scenarios of like, well, what if this happened? Or what if I did this? Or maybe this means that, or whatever, right? Also a character in Name of the Wind, but Brandon knows that. I do, but I had forgotten until you said that, yeah. We don't like it when our predictions are off. That's very upsetting. The more that you rely on predictions and build your life and your actions around your predictions of what's going to happen and how things will work, the more
How
upsetting
would you
it
say
is.
you work with a client, Brandon, who is trying to reduce the degree to which they are upset? And yes, I am projecting myself onto this. Reduce the degree to which they are upset by their predictions being wrong as like a mundane aspect of their daily reality.
Well, whatever specific things you're going to do with that person, right? The main thing is to keep the focus on what people like that want to do is improve their predictions, right? When I make a prediction and it turns out to be wrong, it's like, how do I make it so that that doesn't happen again? How do I make it so that my predictions are more accurate in the future? Where what we actually want to do is decrease the extent to which that person is relying on their predictions.
Okay, so then you would explore with them, what do you get out of relying on your predictions, and then find like other ways to maybe meet whatever they would associate they get out of. You can just ask me too. We can just have this be real.
Oh, I didn't realize that's what was happening. Yes, you can go that way. Although for me, even that, like, that's a very cognitively oriented approach, right? To ask the person explicitly, to intellectually explore, like, what is this thing doing for me and would I like it to be different? Even that in and of itself is asking them to make predictions about what would be different or better or worse if they change the extent to which they rely on predictions. Which is part of the issue, right? And that's a big part of the problem with cognitive orientation in therapy generally, is because it's talk therapy and because of various cultural things and tendencies and trends and whatever. Therapists and clients both tend to think of therapy as like, the benefit of this comes from new understanding, new conscious thinking. Which means that to the extent, and this isn't like every problem and it's not every person or whatever, but to the extent that the person is experiencing problems in some way built on top of or due to an over-reliance on conscious understanding. When we engage in therapy in that way, that makes the problems worse because it reinforces the idea that, yes, this is what's important, is to consciously, intellectually understand everything.
Absolutely.
Now, if therapy is being done the way that it's meant to be done, and I don't mean like specific approaches, I'm talking about the necessary and sufficient for those of you who don't know, Carl Rogers is generally thought of as like
Brandon comes from the lineage of Carl Rogers.
I don't know if by that you mean that like I like his work, which is true, or if like someone that trained me was trained by someone who was trained by someone.
Oh no, I mean maybe this. I don't know about the second thing. I meant the first thing.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
Generally, lineage means like, there's generations.
Oh, okay. Brandon likes Carl Rogers. Let me.
Well, I do.
Plain language.
I do like Carl Rogers. But also, that's not a unique thing. Carl Rogers, anybody who studies therapy is taught. What do you mean I can't understand everything, Brandon? Not only that, but you can't understand anything unless we're.
Oh, are we ready for that? It is 1:33 on a Monday, sir. Are we ready? That was a little bit too much truth.
About the idea. Stop reminding me of my limitations.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Bast and cider.
A client last week at one point towards the end of the session, and I'll edit this for
yes, you'll edit it.
The stream said to me like, Brandon, equal parts thank you and screw you. And I was like, that's my brand. Yep. That's my whole jam.
Yep.
That's
I think we should say 51% thank you.
Yeah, well, it's actually all thank you. The screw you part is just the frustration at the difficulty of making changes or being reminded about true things. Wait, that's a loop
back. That's a loop back. The difficulty of making changes, sir.
Yeah, well, so narratives are just ideas. They're understandings, right? And understanding, of course, we all can understand things as long as we're being clear about what understanding means. As to understand something is to believe that you have all the relevant information necessary to interact with the thing successfully. It's always an illusion, but it's...
I was going to say, isn't that an illusion, sir?
Yes. It's always an illusion, but it is frequently an illusion that you don't uncover the limits of it, right? Like, if I understand...
Oh, Coach Fritz! Yay! Hi, Coach Fritz!
Thank you, and screw you. Yeah.
Aw, that's so cute.
If I understand how to operate my television... Like, is it true in the strictest sense that I have all relevant information necessary in order to... No, but in practice, yes, right? Like, I'm not encountering those use cases where my limitations are relevant. And even when they come up, in fact, our TV just broke, hugs. Our TV just broke in a way that I can't fix. Usually like software issues and whatever. But this is a hardware thing with the power supply and like... Potentially could. I'd have to order a new power supply and open it up and replace everything. But I've reached the limits of my understanding, right? So I'm not trying to say that we should never think that we understand something. It's just helpful, I think, to know that all we mean is, as far as I'm aware, I have not encountered a use case yet in which the understanding, the information I have wasn't allowing me to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. But I've been collecting quotes from like a bunch of people. In fact, I just found another one the other day talking
What's about the quote, sir?
This, I think, was from Feynman, a physicist, I believe.
One of the things this reminds me of is when like scientists get closer and closer to like trying to discover the secrets of the universe, and they're like, it's vaguer than it's ever been. Like, ooh.
Well, sure. Let's see. Thought I screenshot it. Yeah. Feynman. I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. I don't feel frightened by not knowing things, by being lost in a mysterious universe without any purpose, which is the way it really is as far as I can tell. Yeah. The thing is, the only reason people don't like being reminded of these limitations is because we all want to be right about stuff. We don't like being wrong about stuff. So we don't like having to acknowledge that we're wrong about something. Mm-hmm. But if you can get to this place where this belief does underlie everything you're doing, then being confronted with evidence that you are wrong about something is not a problematic or unpleasant experience in and of itself. Obviously, right, you can make mistakes that are unpleasant due to the fact that you didn't know something.
I just said to someone earlier today, I am glad that I was wrong about that. and then smiled,
Well,
which
and
has taken me years.
Even in times when you're not glad to have been wrong about that thing,
Yeah.
if you understand that you're always wrong, then when you get evidence that you were wrong, that evidence is a good experience, because it's like, great, I don't want to be wrong. Now I have information that's helped me to address something that was wrong, and I'm less wrong. Instead of, I thought I was right, and now I'm finding out I'm wrong. If you know you're always wrong. I'm sorry, I feel like we interrupted you when you were trying to talk about your therapy lineage. Oh, yeah. What I was getting at, because I said that thing about when therapy is done the way that it's meant to. So Carl Rogers, the thing that like every therapist is trained on really in like 101, like when you start your therapy training.
Here we go.
Is Carl Rogers' theory on constructive psychological change, or personality change, I think he calls it. So he identifies the necessary and sufficient conditions for constructive personality change. Like, necessary meaning if you don't have these things, there will not be constructive personality change. And sufficient meaning if you have all of these things, you don't need anything else for constructive personality change to take place.
Okay,
and
great.
Those things, that's what I was referring to with if it's being done the way it's meant to. I don't mean like a particular therapeutic approach. That understanding spans across all approaches. That is, to my awareness anyway, relatively unchallenged. There might be like
What
in certain
are they?
types
What
of
are the
psychoanalysis.
conditions?
I'd have to check to make sure I can say them all correctly, but it's therapist authenticity, client awareness of therapist authenticity, unconditional positive regard, therapist congruence, and client awareness of therapist's congruence. And I'm missing one because there's 6, right?
I'm looking it up.
Oh, good. I'm glad. It's nice to have a reminder. While she's looking it up, effectively, it's more or less if people interact in a particular way, then that will lead to constructive, what Rogers was calling constructive personality change for one of those people. So there's an identified therapist and client in this relationship, not just 2 random roles assigned to people.
Okay, they are psychological contact between counselor and client. The client is incongruent, anxious, or vulnerable. The counselor is congruent. The counselor shows unconditional positive regard towards the client. The client receives empathy from the counselor. The client perceives acceptance and unconditional positive regard from the counselor.
So psychological contact and client incongruity were the 2 I wasn't thinking of. Those last 2 are the things I was talking about with client awareness. But yes, empathy, awareness of therapist congruence. Which, like, of course, what do those things mean? We don't need to get into like a full lecture on like what is authenticity, what is unconditional positive regard, what is congruence, although those things are great to talk about. But that's what I was referencing, is that as long as people are interacting in that way, regardless, and there's other research on this too, there's something called common factors theory about the benefits of the therapeutic approach, the benefits of a therapeutic process, what do they come from? And that research shows over and over that like the specific techniques which are used is a very, very small portion of what matters.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what I meant by as long as therapy is being done the way that it's meant to. So what I was trying to say there is we often these days, therapy is considered a place where like the point of this is a conscious understanding of things. That's what makes it beneficial. And it doesn't matter. As long as it's being done that way, as long as there's the authenticity, the congruence, the unconditional positive regard, and so on,
empathy,
then benefit still happens, even if we both are theorizing that it's about conscious understanding. We can be wrong in this process and think all that matters is the conscious understanding, and it can still work anyway, because that's the whole point of being wrong, is we're wrong. Like you might think that's the only thing that matters, but it isn't the only thing that matters. So even if it was true that by focusing on conscious understanding there was no benefit, that would mean that the thing that you're focusing on as conscious understanding is the only thing that can benefit you, and you're focusing on the wrong thing. Does that make sense?
I lost you a little.
All right. I'll oversimplify it in ways that make it not quite accurate, but like, if I think that the way that you help me is based on what specifically you say, but I'm wrong about that, actually what helps me is your presence.
Yeah.
Then I'm still going to get benefited while we're together because of your presence, even though what you say.
Oh, okay. I was following it then. Yeah.
So if it was true, the idea that like, because I'm focused on the wrong thing, because I think it's about what you say, that means there's no benefit. That would only be true if what I thought was correct. It's a paradox, right? That I'm saying that what matters is what's discussed. And therefore, if we're discussing the wrong thing, which isn't to say that you can say any old thing, because obviously you can't. No. It's not about like secret arcane knowledge. It's about you have to be authentic and congruent and, and then different things work for different people because that first piece is the most important without that first piece, you can't have the rest, the psychological contact. So like you have to have a person's attention, and what you say and what you do for different people will draw their attention differently. If you don't have their attention, then there's nothing happening.
Yeah. Athena can be the kick line. Do, 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 do,
the kick line needs a line of people.
Maybe my fingers is one. Do, 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 do.
Anyway, so we for various reasons, think of it this way: our far-flung ancestors, far back into the evolutionary past.
I kept picturing a tribe when you were talking about this, for what it's worth.
Their day, the day of an average human under the conditions under which we evolved, our bodies evolved, is full of activity. It's very important to be, but you're not in the same place moment to moment. And even if you were in the same place for a long period of time, which you weren't, because we were all nomadic, those places would change because you're not in like static buildings that you maintain, right? Like natural changes in the weather and the seasons and whatever.
Holy guacamole.
In fact, to this day, one of the more common, like if somebody's depressed or in their head or anxious or whatever, one of the most common pieces of advice is go for a walk. And I know that there tends to be a focus on that as an intervention because it like gets your body moving and gets your blood flowing, and that's all true. But it is also true that if you step outside, or even if you open a window, your attention is distributed differently. When you are inside, a big part of what the point of being inside is that you don't have to worry about what's outside. The walls are doing that for you. If there's storm clouds coming, I wouldn't even know about it right now, but even if I did, I wouldn't care, because if it rains, nothing changes for me anyway. So my attention processes are not prioritizing that. If I hear some growl from outside, I don't need to worry about that. I'm on a second floor right now with a wall between me and the outside, right?
Absolutely.
So as soon as you step outside, your senses, your attention does have to go to your senses more. You're paying more attention to the sights and the sounds and the smells, because by definition, it's an environment over which you have much less control, and therefore you can't just predict and rely on its safety. Now, walls are MVP. Yeah, walls are MVP. I know this from playing Minecraft. A shockingly accurate representation of
Puppy
life.
says hi to Bast too.
Oh, hi, Puppy. That can redirect your attention. And a lot of what we're struggling with, in fact, I would say that for the kinds of things that people are exploring in therapy, with very few exceptions, I'm going to say no exceptions. At least some portion of it has to do with what's going on in a person's cognitive environment, not the physical environment. Obviously, there's often physical stuff going on, and the body is part of the physical environment. The body is the part of us that physically exists, right? But yeah, if a person was theoretically, for example, depressed, but paying no attention to what's going on in their cognitive space, they would, if nothing else, they would be unaware of that condition. So anybody who is depressed, aware of themselves being depressed or sad or anxious, Brandon said something that wasn't qualified. I do occasionally, but rarely, say something that
Who
isn't
is this
qualified.
really? He's transforming too. He's riding the tidal waves of change. He's just not using the metaphor.
No, honestly, actually, I say things a lot that aren't qualified. I've said it a bunch of this. I just usually am saying it in a different, like I'm saying like by definition, because that's what it is. And in this case, that's what I hesitated at first because I didn't want to like ignore the possibility of edge cases that I'm not considering.
Yeah.
But then reconsidered because no, if we're talking about therapy, we're talking about something that's going on in a person's cognition, if nothing else, even if the cause of it had nothing to do with cognition, their awareness of it has to do with cognition.
Yeah.
In other words, like we could probably safely assume that anybody in the world who has ever been starving to death was depressed, but that none of them really would have at that time been like, I'm feeling very depressed because that's not top priority and that's not where your resources are going.
Mm-hmm.
So my point here is that like, yeah, we live in a world in which like generations of humans, millennia of evolution, and then also technological development and the acquisition and passing down of knowledge has led to like us, I want to say conquering, but certainly addressing like the physical demands of our environment and our life. For the most part, this one, obviously there are exceptions too, but for the most part, most of us are not concerned on a daily basis about how can I get food to survive.
I was just thinking of the phrase like the task of postmodern man is reckoning with cognition or something. Like something about, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that, but I would also say, especially in the context of this conversation we're having, that you can pay attention to things even when they aren't problems, right? I should say you can pay attention to things even when they're not dangerous or harmful or detrimental. Those things call your attention automatically. Anything which we perceive to be dangerous is going to call our attention. In the absence of that, we still pay attention to stuff. You don't just stop noticing things unless you're asleep, right? And yes, we mostly only go to sleep in a context in which we don't think that there's anything dangerous happening.
Yeah.
Again, rare exceptions. Lies, I've never been able to pay attention to anything that wasn't dangerous. Well, I know that's a joke.
Ooh, as evidenced by Brandon being a speed demon. That is a great, that reminds me of really good comedy skits that do the whatever you tie back to like the first joke. What is it called? A clapback? Callback? There we go.
Clapback is when somebody insults you and you clap back, you insult them back. So part of the point I'm trying to make about this change thing from the beginning is that because we know, all of us individually, even if we don't understand it in this way, we know that like things which are dangerous call our attention more than anything else. So we also then tend to assume that anything which has called our attention must, sorry to hound on this, Brandon, it's just so funny. It is funny. And I should lean into the reputation of being a speed demon, play up that bad boy angle. That'll get more people paying attention. I'm joking.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I took it so seriously.
So yes, because things which are dangerous call our attention, we then assume anything which calls our attention, and this is to some extent built in and to some extent learned or reinforced, I guess, that we assume that that's dangerous at first. If something calls my attention, my first assumption is it's dangerous until I have information to the opposite. So this is to the contrary. This is why, like, if someone's like, if you're walking and someone's like, Caitlin, you know, your first reaction is to like, what's going on, right? Or if someone says like, look at your shoes, your first thought is going to be like, wow, what's wrong with my shoes? Not like, this is a neutral
yes,
statement.
I experience this all the time, sir. Yes.
Yeah, this is everybody, right? Because that's safest. If someone's calling your attention, be careful, assume it's dangerous until you have information to the contrary. But yeah, that can build up to the point where, especially if you're very good at cognitively justifying, like creating narratives, and especially if you believe this idea that it is possible to be correct about things, to know the truth, be right or wrong about stuff, then these processes kick in where if something calls your attention, And that initial thought is like, oh, what's going on? And then you have to justify that this is something bad, and that's why it's calling your attention. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
we tend to then think, I
Yep.
know that's a joke. I've never been able to pay attention to anything that wasn't dangerous. Obviously, it's a joke. But it is true that people sometimes, some more than others, it varies. We have a tendency to turn anything we're paying attention to into something dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
We construct narratives that justify it as dangerous, and that's why we have to pay attention to it, which can put people in a position where it's hard for them for their life to get any better, because even as it does, things are calling their attention now, and anything that calls their attention that they didn't like willfully choose to pay attention to must be bad.
Absolutely.
So even improvements then get thought of as this is a bad experience. That's why I'm always very curious when somebody says, I'm struggling with change or dealing with a lot of change, or I don't like change, because that's usually what's going on, or some element of what's going on. Because think of the narrative justification.
And that is true. That is true for me. Thank you, sir.
Right. Because
yes.
If what was calling my attention is dangerous, then I don't perceive it and conceptualize it as, well, it's change, and that's why I don't like it.
Yeah.
The reason I don't like it is because of whatever the bad, detrimental, dangerous thing about it is. So if something keeps calling my attention and it's not a problem, but I am going through this process of looking to justify why it has to be a problem.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would I be paying attention to it?
Yep.
Then that's a narrative that's offered culturally as like things can be a change, and that can be something that you don't like.
In
the same way that if someone says, how are you? There's a relatively set list of socially acceptable responses to that. Like, how are you? I'm good. I'm fine. Whatever. Including exceptions, right? Like, how are you? Oh, I'm sick. How are you? Oh man, I'm struggling. Like, but if someone says, how are you? And you're like, well, I'm kind of constipated. Obviously you can't say that, but it's not considered a social, like that's not a response to the prompt, even though literally speaking, the literal meaning of the words, how are you? That is a part of the condition that you are in. That's not what's being expressed when a person says, how are you? It's not the literal words. So we're offered a list of things, and if you're sad, you did not choose the correct response. Try again. If you're sad, there is a limited list of things which justify being sad. And you have to kind of select from among those things. And that is a lot of what people like to do in therapy is like, I'm sad, but I don't know what of the justifiable reasons counts here. Can you help me to identify which justifiable reason I have for being sad? And then we'll often end up with like, oh, well, this is, you went through this experience and this mirrors that in some way. And that's why, that's what people are sometimes looking for, is just like, oh, okay, good. There is a justifiable reason for my sadness.
Even though ironically they might want to be happier, and that by justifying their sadness,
well,
you're
by definition,
almost reinforcing.
They want to be happier.
But then
and yes, that can reinforce the problem.
Yeah.
Often does. A lot of the time, the I don't like change is an example where like that's not a statement that could be literally said to be true of any person, because everything is change all the time, and we don't not like everything. That's impossible.
Yep.
But if you identify yourself as a person who doesn't like change, and again, we are talking about people who have a strong, maybe stronger than average desire to analyze or categorize everything, including themselves and the thoughts and feelings and actions that they experience. So then once a person like that identifies themselves in a certain way, they're more incentivized to continue to live in a way that justifies that doesn't challenge that and show that I was actually wrong about the fact that I don't like change. No, it's definitely true, I don't. And as we were talking about, I don't like change is almost always applied to changes that are actually neutral to positive.
Yes.
So then we end up with a person who part of their identity is actually disliking positive changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my heart goes out. Oh my gosh.
Well, this is why we do what we do, because you can change this stuff.
Yeah, I wrote a poem yesterday about, so there are these plants in the front of the house that I'm currently renting that unfurl, and they're whatever the thing is, what is it called when they come back every year, Brandon? Primordial?
Perennials.
Perennial. There we go. Perennials. And so I was talking about unfurling, but I was like, ooh, could there be a way to like write something about unfurling out of this sort of I hate change, or I don't like change, or I don't do well with change? Because it also sounds like a good tool to keep people stuck in cycles of like, this is a little bit of a dramatic thing to say, but
So
jobs that they hate or things like that. Okay, I'm gonna look at the comments now.
This is why I don't label myself. As far as I will admit, I am a nameless amorphous consciousness with 2 cats.
Aww.
You're growing
Bast
primordial
and
plants?
cider. We are all primordial plants.
Okay, see, this is where I'm talking about. Sometimes you just use language as just sounds.
Yes.
Primordial, it refers to the soup, you know, the oceans with like.
So there were no primordial plants. It was just primordial bacteria, right?
I don't know this. I'm just putting this together. I'm doing my best to, but I'm guessing that word means before death existed.
Oh,
primordial, I'm guessing, is pre-mort.
Okay, so definitely, yeah. So I was trying to say perennial, and I love the word primordial. So I thought of primordial, and then Brandon helped me. And this is not therapy, and this is this is not therapy hour. Yes,
Caitlin is correct. We have to wrap up. It's good to be with you all of you nameless amorphous consciousnesses.
With at least 2 cats. That is another way. Brandon
it's good to make
does not
psychological
have any
contact
cats.
with you all. It's true.
Filled with empathy. With empathy.
Yeah, I usually.
Are you calling your children cats right now, Brandon?
I'm saying that my children take up the space in my life that would otherwise potentially be available for cats. There is no room for cats in my life. Thanks for this.
How do you know that, sir?
Because I live it.
Okay.
All right. Good to be with you all. We'll be back same time next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach Fritz. Thanks, Bast and Cider. Goodbye, everybody.